Good morning, good morning. It's Make It Happen Monday. And for those that are new to the channel, I'm Cheryl Andrews, also known as the Listening Detective. And I'm here to share stories and strategies and questions to help you achieve success without stress. So today we're talking about loving the whole of you. And the reason I want to talk about that is because whenever we're looking to achieve success, i.e. we want something to change or something has changed, there is likely that we are going to have a range of emotions, a range of results and responses, and we don't always get what we want exactly when we want it. And us human beings can often not behave in a particularly great way. We might be more irritable or more impatient or intolerant or frustrated or whatever the emotional response might be when we're not getting what we want. We might even get into drama, and those of you that have read Manage Your Critic from Overwhelm to Clarity in 7 Steps, you'll know about the drama triangle. And so we might get into persecutor, where we blame other people. We might get into victim, where we blame ourselves. And we might get into rescuer, where we get frustrated with other people because we feel we have to do things for them because they won't do it for themselves. Before we know it, we're in a bit of frustration and pickle, and any success or any hope of success can seem really, really challenging. Good morning, whoever's joining me today, please say hello. It's always lovely to have you on live. We're just talking today about the importance of loving the whole of you. So when we go through, when we decide, I'm looking at the definition of success first of all, and I'd love to know for you, success is like what? What determines success for you? In the dictionary, it says it's an accomplishment or of an aim or purpose, the attainment of fame, wealth, or social status, a person or thing that achieves a desired outcome or attains the fame or wealth. It's a result. So to get from where you are now to where you want to be, that may be what most people would call success, whether you're aiming to be famous or whether you're aiming to be a great parent, a great lover, a great friend, a financially successful business owner, whatever that is. Can't guarantee. I'm sure some people do go from A to B without anything going wrong. But invariably, if we're doing something that's new to us, we're going to be learning, we're going to be making mistakes, and we may get some human responses. And how we talk to ourselves and about ourselves during those setbacks, failures, whatever you want to call them, those learning moments, those times when things just don't go to plan, between what's working, what's not working, what could work better. And we're noticing small changes. So let's say, for example, you set yourself an outcome that you're aiming for and you're going for it, and you have a setback, and this time you have an emotional response, and maybe your default is to go into victim and go, oh, nothing goes right, I can never do anything right. Even if this time you spent less time in victim and you caught yourself and you changed that and were able to get yourself back into, okay, that one didn't work, what would I like to have happen? Then noticing progress, noticing change, and learning to give yourself what works, what doesn't work, what could work better, feedback along the way can often be all that part of your brain that goes into flight, or freeze and needs to be settled. But there's also the impact what's the impact on you if you feel a failure, when things go wrong. And for me, that's when I'm most likely to go into overwhelm. It's when I'm most likely to go into flight, or freeze, where I just want to get out of here, just want to get away. I mean, I tend to be a default for flight. And if I can't get away and someone starts talking to me or asking me questions, that tends to be when I go into flight mode, unless I really don't know the answer, in which case I'm going to freeze. So I can have a number of different responses to those situations when things are not going well. I'm okay usually with one thing, but if two things don't go so well, I can almost feel the tension building up in my system. And if there's a third one, then it really does impact me. And it means I become, emotionally, I get fed up, I get really cheesed off, I don't want to be bothered, and I really need to retreat and get away. Over the years of working out how to manage myself and my emotions, what I've come to understand is that I can resource myself if I take more time out to reflect on how I'm feeling, and just noticing that I feel disappointed or I'm wary or I'm not, I'm a bit fed up about something, and give myself a time to express and literally process that emotion, acknowledge that feeling and acknowledge that thought. And then once I've done that and I've consciously gone, actually, given that that didn't work, what would I like to have happen? Then I can move on. And in the busyness of life, and what I've discovered also is if I'm busy talking to somebody else and I'm scrolling social media, I'm more likely to activate this. Because if I'm busy doing something that here in real life that's challenging, and then I read something on social media that's also challenging, I then have had that sort of that pattern of two things close together, and I have no space to process what I'm thinking or feeling. And so unless I space things out and actually give myself space to do that, it can be really, really difficult to process those emotions, and therefore difficult to pick myself up when I've got failings or a lack of results or response that says all the effort that I've put into achieving a particular outcome is actually been worth it. So one of the things that I worked on a few years ago now, it's probably about 5 years ago now, was this year to love the whole of me. And it was something I'd been criticised myself for a lot, was my body shape, and I was looking to lose weight and be fitter and healthier and all this sort of thing. And I was finding myself being really, really critical of myself. And so I decided to set myself a project. I was inspired by the Dawn French diary. There was something in there, an activity she got us to do when I was reading through the diary, that kind of was a sort of foundation that gave me an idea of how I was going to do it. But the project was that every single day I would write about a part of me and would say, what I loved about it. So I started with my hair, what do I love about my hair? And I was very interested and very fascinated that I didn't really have a lot of criticism for my hair. I'd actually quite liked my hair all of the time. And I'd loved the fact that it was really straight and I could style it one day, go to bed, get up, it was fine the next day. And I got to my eyebrows and I loved them. Even though I've got a scar in the middle of one of them where I fell off a roundabout when I was about 3 years old. Into my eyes, and then my nose, my cheeks, my teeth, my lips, my chin. So it literally went down every single part of my body, and every day wrote something that I loved about that part. And the deal that I had with myself was that I wasn't to move on to the next part of my body until I had written something, at least one thing that I loved about that part. And I got to about June time and I was at my stomach and I stopped. I just couldn't think of anything nice to say about my own stomach until 28th of August, when it was my daughter's birthday. And I was reminded, obviously, that my tummy had given me my children. And I was able to think of what I loved about that part of my body. And then I was able to move on right down to my feet and my toenails, etc. And what that taught me was that there was unknowingly, there was, as I was also having to find things I was loving, I was noticing the things I was criticising those parts of my body for. And we've got, as humans, the negative bias. So it was easy for my system to listen to the stuff that doesn't work, but I wasn't very good at listening to what does work. So I really just want to put it out there. One of the things I'm going to be doing this year as a result of some stuff that's going on for me is I did that on the physical body, but I'm going to start to look at some of the other things that I love about me. So maybe my response, or the way that I talk, or the fact that I can articulate my inner thinking. For some people that really frustrates them. It doesn't go down particularly well. And for other times, other people really value it in me. And I guess where I'm getting to is, and I'm realising on my own journey, I've got to reach a point where it's not just about if other people like it. I've got to like it about myself. In fact, I've got to love it about myself. And whilst getting really clear about what parts of us we love and which parts we don't love, then we've got choice. And there will be parts like the shape of my nose. I mean, yes, okay, if I didn't like the shape of my nose, I could have surgery, I guess, but it's not something I would want to do. So therefore I have, I can either change it or I can learn to accept it. And so I know for one of my dialogue things, those of you that know me well will know that if you ask me a question that I haven't thought about before, and it's maybe I've got an emotional response to it, I'm an external processor, so I will talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and the metaphor I have for it is, it's like you've told me, you've asked me a question that I know the answer to, and it's like I'm trying to find a favourite red jumper that I haven't worn for about 3 years that is at the back of the wardrobe, and I know I've got it, but I just haven't needed it because it hasn't been cold enough or for whatever reason, but I know that I know the answer. The problem is, as I'm going through my wardrobe trying to find the red jumper you've asked me for, I'm pulling out all the other items and I'm telling you the story about when I bought it and how it makes me feel and whether I like it or don't like it. It's almost like I'm sorting through my stuff to get to the answer you're looking for. And I used to feel real shame about that. I used to feel really bad because people would say, oh my goodness sake, get to the point, stop waffling. And it took me a while to realise that is how I process. That's how I make sense of the world. That's how I get to the answer that people want. And I can also totally understand that when someone has asked me a question and everything I'm talking about seems to be anything but the red jumper, and it may not be obvious to them that all of the things I'm talking about are clothes, or they have a thread and they're linked to the thing that they're asking me for. So I can communicate to people. I tend to notice they look a bit glazed over, or they look a bit baffled. I might say to them, now that I know that about me and I value it about me, I can say to them, don't worry, you don't have to listen to any of this. This isn't the answer. I'm trying to get to the answer. Or I can say to them, if you're in a hurry and you need to go, leave me with this, because if I can be left alone and no one's talking to me, I can work it out either by writing it out or talking out loud to myself, and I can go back to them with the answer. But learning to love that part of me has been a journey, because often the feedback I get from people is, especially if they're under pressure with time and they want to know the answer and they can't see how if I'm going anywhere near the point, is that it would cause them frustration, and so I would be criticised. People would say, oh, for goodness sake, hurry up, are you going to get to the point, or come up for air. They would make judgment on the way that I was coming up with the answer rather than being able to listen until the answer emerged. And as I say, I totally get it, because I'm equally, until I did the training in listening, I found it quite hard listening to somebody when I don't know what the purpose for listening is, or I don't know what I'm supposed to be paying attention to. If there's loads of information coming to me, I don't know which part is the important part and what's relevant. And it's only through training and learning to listen to what gets repeated and ask questions that I was able to understand what the relevance was to the story or the dialogue that was happening to the actual question that was being asked of them. So one of the things that I've done is learn to, one, either say to the person, are you happy to listen while I work it out? Two, do you want to just give me some space and time and I'll come back with the answer? And I also, people that work and live with me a lot, I will say to them, if I'm talking and you're like, I don't know what you're going on about, I said, ask me the question, is there a relationship between whatever I've just said and the thing that they've asked me about? Because guess what? Sometimes I have gone off on a tangent. Sometimes there is no relationship between it. It's just that, this sparked that thought, that sparked another thought, that sparked another, and I've gone off looking for the red dress and forgot I was supposed to be looking for a red jumper. And so I've got caught up in the story and the dialogue of it, and I'm not on track to find the answer the person's looking for. But equally, if they ask me if there's a relationship between the two, I can go, oh yeah, it's because this, and this. And often just that pause with a question helps me make the connection quicker, and I get to that point much faster. Whereas if somebody said, is there a point to this, or what's the point of this, or like they've got a bit of contempt in their comment, it can literally stop me, and then to start again I almost have to go through that whole story thing again to make the connection to get to that point that I want. And I'm sure you've had that with somebody you're talking to, where that you ask a question, maybe you say something or you comment, or you might even ask a question, and then they repeat the story again. And that's because the way that they're processing to get to the answer, they need to go through that. And if we interrupt it, there's a really good chance they'll just repeat it all over again. So learning to listen to other people with compassion and kindness and without judgment can help them process more effectively. But equally, loving yourself and loving the whole of you can also help you to process information more effectively. So the questions I've put in the status is to think about, what does success mean to you? What does it mean to us? How do you know when you're being successful? So how are you evaluating it? And what's the impact of not being successful? And I know for me that it comes down to having clarity of what it is I want and remembering why I want it and who I want it, because sometimes that purpose, that meaning, that reason for wanting it has changed and it's no longer relevant. Second thing is to give myself good quality feedback, to notice what's working. And when it does work, it does feel amazing. It's a really great buzz to sort of feel like you've aimed for something, you've achieved it, and you've got that feeling of success. But equally, when it doesn't work, the impact is often stress, frustration, which I can take out on myself or other people near me, and that isn't something I want to do. And what I've learned over the years is that if we can learn to love the journey of success from A to B and know that we have these highs and lows, that we can learn to love how we learn, love how we process information, how we make sense of the world, and know ourselves so well that even when somebody else criticizes us for it, we can have empathy and compassion for why it's frustrating and hard for them, but also without really giving ourselves a hard time and being mean to ourselves. And that's what I'd hope for you on this week of Valentine's, a week of love. So I'd love to know from you, having listened to today's video, and whoever's been with me on live, I really appreciate you being here. Given what we've been talking about, what would you like to have happen? Now that you know what you know about success and loving the whole of you, what would you like to have happen? If you feel able to share it, great. If not, you keep it all for yourself. But it's always great feedback for me, that knowing that these videos have an impact, that they make a difference to you, that they give you insights, that things change as a result of it, and that you are achieving more success without stress. But the most important thing is that this is a resource that you can tap into on a once a week and think about, given what you've listened to today, what would you like to have happen? And then the invitation will be for that to happen, you need to be like what, or how do you need to be? Or what kind of you is that you? And that's really where today's video has been about, is, just noticing if you were kinder to yourself, you showed yourself more love and compassion, and you weren't so mean to yourself or others, what difference would that make? And last but not least, for you to be however you need to be, and for you to have what you want to have, what kind of resource or support might you need? And that might be simply space and time, it might be water, food, it might be the environment, or it might actually be some physical help or support from somebody else. But have a think about it now. What kind of resource or support might you need? And that leads me to conclude today. And as always, remember that if you are struggling to get clarity of what you want and the confidence to make it happen, or you're just really struggling with change, whether it's change that's been imposed on you or change that you're wanting to make happen, please reach out. I'm always here to listen, and I'll do everything I can to guide you and support you to achieve that success without stress. Have a fantastic week. I'll see you next Monday.